Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. I hear splashing some nights.
Hello? Hey! I saw you!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Lobby, a Real Lovers podcast. And we are continuing our M. Night Shyamalan Retrospective series with this week's movie, Lady in the Water, from 2006, directed and written and produced by M. Night Shyamalan. I'm just going to read the synopsis here from IMDb, or Letterboxd, sorry. Apartment building superintendent Cleveland Heap rescues what he thinks is a young woman from the pool he maintains when he discovers that she is actually a character from a bedtime story who is trying to make the journey back to her home. He works with his tenants to protect his new friend from the creatures that are determined to keep her in our world. Like I said, this film is directed by M. Night Shyamalan, produced by Sam Mercer, produced by M. Night Shyamalan, Jose Rodriguez, and John Rusk. This film is starring Paul Giamatti, Bryce Dallas Howard, Jeffrey Wright, the great Bob Balaban. I'm going to butcher this one. Sarita Shootery? I think that's, hopefully I said that. Cindy Chung, Freddie Rodriguez, Bill Irwin, Noah Gray Cabby, and Joseph D. Reitman. And joining me to talk about Lady in the Water, you've probably heard him already on this series before, Peyton. Welcome back. Welcome back to The Lobby and the M. Night Shyamalan Retrospective series. How you doing, Peyton?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here once again. I'll do as many of these as you'll allow me to, so I'm glad to be here.
You're welcome back anytime. The internet's favorite M. Night Shyamalan fan, Peyton.
Hopefully, that's the goal, but I don't know about that.
You're my favorite M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, I appreciate it.
So, but yeah, like I said, we're talking about Lady in the Water. It came out in 2006. And Peyton, what's your history? We already know your history with M. Night Shyamalan from past episodes, but what's your history with Lady in the Water?
It's short. Basically, I was rewatching all of his movies in, I think, February of 2024. And I think that's just because, that's about a year ago now. I think that's just because I had an interaction with a friend in late 2023 that I think sparked this whole thing. I was talking about how I really liked his movies, and my friend was like, "What are you talking about? That guy makes bad movies." And she's not a huge film person, but she was just like, "Yeah, he makes bad movies." And I was like, "No, Glass is great, Old is great, Split is great." And she was like, "I don't like any of those. Those aren't." And I just remember, I think, just being like, I need to revisit all of these movies and give these a shot, because I've always really liked him. And so I wanted to watch all the ones that I hadn't seen. I hadn't seen The Visit, Lady in the Water, After Earth, I think were the three I hadn't seen. And so I watched this one, and I love this movie. This is, I think, kind of will make you or break you as a Shyamalan super fan. But if you're really into his stuff, you'll love this movie. If you like some of his stuff, this will probably fall on the negative side for you. But I've only seen this movie, I think, twice. Once I fell in love with it, and then I watched it with a couple friends who also hadn't seen it in a while. And of course, I liked it way more than they did. But yeah, it's truly, I think, his weirdest movie almost. It's his most bizarre film. So yeah, short history. I like the movie, and I've seen it a couple times.
Yeah, I've seen this film a couple times too. Most recent for this rewatch that we just did, and I saw this film once. I went to my local video store, and I was a big fan of M. Night Shyamalan, from the beginning, going into video stores and seeing his name, and I loved him in The Sixth Sense. And whenever I see his name pop up, I would instantly rent that one. And Lady in the Water really stood out to me in 2006, 2007, and I picked it up off the shelf and rented it, and I instantly loved it. I love just the fantastical like nature of it, and just like this, like the way it felt like a bedtime story. Like it actually is. M. Night Shyamalan actually wrote like the bedtime story, and he used to tell it to his daughters like as they were growing up. And he actually said like in the behind the scenes that he wants the bedtime story to live on. He wants like the movie to be like its own thing, but he wants the bedtime story to, he wants parents to tell this story to their kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, I think that what makes like this film like special and very personal, and you definitely get that for sure. But I loved this movie the first time, but I never really felt a reason to rewatch it. I don't know why, just because I would say it's probably one of my favorite in his filmography. But I like when I did have enough money to buy like the DVD or I think it was the Blu-ray, someone stole it. Someone stole this copy of Lady in the Water, which is funny because I was the only, I was like you, like growing up, no one really liked M. Night Shyamalan. I was like, why would you steal M. Night Shyamalan's Lady in the Water? You don't like this guy. You don't like this guy. But I just recently repurchased it again for like this, for this retrospective, and I'm holding on to this. I'm holding this special in my collection because this is really like one of my favorites, just because I like I said, I love like how fantastical it is. I love Paul Giamatti and an M. Night Shyamalan. He needs to be in more M. Night Shyamalan movies, because especially the way Shyamalan likes to use like theater trained actors. Like Paul Giamatti brought like this twinkle in his eye he brings to pretty much every movie that he does, but I think this was just he was just very fatherly, like here, reminding me of a more recent Paul Giamatti film, the
Holdovers.
The Holdovers, a little bit like that performance as well, reminiscent of that. But yeah, Lady in the Water is great. For anyone that hates this one, I understand that it's difficult to like, but I think people should give this one a chance because what Shyamalan is saying here is really important. And by the end of this rewatch, I was tearing up just because.
Oh yeah,
Shyamalan is. I'm gonna try not to cry during this recording because Shyamalan just gets very personal, and just I love, like we've talked about purpose like a lot throughout this entire series. Like that Shyamalan loves to bring that up, like community and purpose and what people like mean in the world. And I feel like Lady in the Water is like the cherry on top of that theme that he keeps running with. And also, we're coming off of The Village. This is like a perfect companion piece to The Village, just because The Village is like the downsides of like community and closing off, and Lady in the Water is here are the positives of like how these people can like affect other people happening like in this world around them. But yeah, I love this film. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said, so make it or break it for a Shyamalan fan. It's one of the most, I think, personal films for him, and also one of the most, I guess I just like vulnerable. It's like completely vulnerable. You could watch this movie and like straight up hate him as a person after, or you could respect it. And I could see it going either way, because specifically with how he utilizes his cameo in this film, his role that he plays. But yeah, how would you like to approach this one?
I guess we could talk a little bit, because his cameo, Shyamalan is famous for cameoing in pretty much all of his movies, but this is like the one film where he is a major like part. Like he's part of the crew. He's part of the Avengers team up like towards the end of this movie. And whenever I remember watching this and hearing kind of the reaction, and people are, "Oh, Shyamalan, you think your writing is going to save the world?" I didn't get that. Like this
it literally does, though. It literally could. That's what I'm saying.
But we'll get into it when we get into the breakdown of this movie. But I saw it like on this rewatch. I saw it more of because he plays a very mundane character, like all the characters in this. They're all like mundane and ordinary, and he doesn't necessarily see himself as like a great writer. But that moment, like when he sees Story, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, like just in Paul Giamatti's like house or like apartment, and that music score swells, and he was
Yeah.
struggling on like writing, like he was having writer's block. I don't think he specifically says writer's block, but he was just having a hard time. When that score swells, I'm not as a writer, you probably feel this too, like when you see something like in your room or see someone and that light bulb hits, like light bulb turns on, you get that feeling like when you see Shyamalan look at story. I'm like, oh my god, everything's coming together. And that's what I love about this, is because it really shows the power of, like I said, community, and this, like, what effect people can have on other people and not even know it. And I think Shyamalan really hit the nail on the head with that one for sure. But yeah.
And he's such a thematic director, and like I think that this movie in particular, it exists like there's not a lot of a illusion in this movie. Like it's all more literal than you'd expect. Like her character is literally named Story, and M. Night Shyamalan literally plays a writer, and then there's this one guy who's literally a film critic. These are not that allegorical. Like you're just throwing this all in here, which is, it's bizarre and cool. And I think this movie is designed, like he said, to be a fairy tale that you could tell your kids, or that he could tell his kids. And I have an actor friend of mine, Stephen Sean Garland, who I talked to about M. Night last year, and because that's when I was doing all my rewatches, and he was like, yeah, Lady in the Water, that's the one, like people hate on it, but I think that one is truly great. And like it's simply because he said he wants it to be like a bedtime story for his kids, and that's exactly what it feels like. It's like he made exactly the movie that he was trying to make, so how can you really say it's all that bad?
Yeah, for sure. And also it just shows how vulnerable like M. Night is, like when he's like involving his kids, especially in Trap. Like how protective he is of Salika in that movie, and how he wants to make sure that she's the star. And like here in Lady in the Water, it's like he wants what's best for her too. Like he wants to protect her, but he also wants Story, particularly like Story and Paul Giamatti's character. Like he wants what's best for her and go back to like where she came from. But like when she gets injured, like during the movie, he wants to heal her and still protect her. And I think that's like a perfect kind of like allegory and like theme for what probably both of his daughters at this point. But what I love when doing this series, I love just how Shyamalan is like progressing. Like when he was younger, it was all like big blockbuster stuff and kind of focusing on superheroes, and now he's getting into more like family theme and community and supporting each other. I think it's a really interesting like trajectory for his career for sure.
Yeah, I think that it's so interesting the way that this movie is like constructed. You have all these apartment tenants, and I think what he's trying to do is probably something along the lines of like, I think he wants everyone to feel important, feel like they have a vital role to play in. I think Shyamalan is probably someone who believes that everyone should be an artist or a storyteller to some degree. And I like the side characters in this. It's there's such a silly bunch of different personalities, and it's so what I like about Paul Giamatti's character in particular is how he's what's the word? Like when he meets Story, it's like he gets that childlike excitement for the adventure that she's taking him on, and for trying to figure out like how to get her back to her world. And like you can tell that his instinct is to shut it down and be like an adult and be serious. But then you can also see, and Paul Giamatti plays this so well, you can see like how excited he is to be learning about all this stuff. And I think this is probably, you figure out what happened to this character, it's like he's probably hasn't opened himself up to something like that in a long time. And I think it's a great metaphor for this movie, obviously coming after The Village. I think this is Night Shyamalan's response to feeling bruised by how The Village was received. It's like, because The Village, it's been named, but when it came out, like people didn't like it, and it's such a bummer because that movie is like so beautiful and like
it's a great romance.
Yeah. And so it's like I open up my heart and I make this thing that I'm really proud of, and then everyone hates it because and it's, you know, you guys don't even understand, like even Jeffrey Wright has a line in here that's, who would presume to understand the intentions of another human being. It's like, you guys, maybe you guys don't understand me, so I'm going to be weird. I'm going to do this stuff. And I think Paul Giamatti's character is also an insert for M. Night's emotional state, making this movie, feeling like he's lost something, feeling lost himself, and having to really put more faith and listen harder to his stories than he ever has before, because it's at this point, I have to do this in order to save myself. I have to believe in myself. And so I just think that is so beautiful. And it is a wacky film. Like, it's not exactly something you put on just to chill to. Like, it's not a very casual movie. It's just, you just need all that context to really appreciate it. And that's, I think, why people get so lost with this one. It's just not a typical film for entertainment.
It's funny you say that, because I would put the soundtrack on for just to chill too, just because James Newton Howard is back for, I'm pretty sure he's always teamed up with M. Night Shyamalan. I haven't looked at his later movies, but I'm pretty sure that's like a constant team up. But I think this might be his best score. I like I mentioned, like when Shyamalan, or I forget the character he plays, but like when Shyamalan's character like sees story for the first time, I love just like the way it swells, like the main theme of Lady in the Water, and just like you get goosebumps for sure, like when that happens, and you feel for these characters even though they are silly. I also love how grounded they are too. You even like the guy that is working out one side of his body.
Yeah,
that's weird, but I wouldn't say I would see someone like that at the gym, but just like people that are hyper focused on one thing at the gym, that constantly at the gym. So it's, I think that's what Shyamalan's kind of like commenting on there. But to get into a little bit more fun facts, because I don't know how we're going to break down this movie, because there's not really much to break down. There's just basically story, like comes into the story. She's trying to come back. She gets injured, and then they have to figure out this story like along the way. But it's a very simple story. But one interesting thing that I found, this is the first M. Night Shyamalan film post Disney, after Touchstone Pictures. Pretty much Touchstone Pictures and Walt Disney have teamed up with Shyamalan up until now, because they had a breakup just because Disney just didn't understand like his vision, and they didn't want, basically after The Village tanked or whatever, or not necessarily tanked, but the reception wasn't all that great, and Disney didn't really want to be a part of it. So this is the first Warner Brothers movie. So I thought that was interesting. And also the fact that they built this entire apartment complex, much like they built an entire village in The Village. That's why I can see how these two films can work like in tandem, like
planted
together.
all that corn for signs.
Oh yeah, that's insane. Is that cornfield still? I have to go to Philadelphia just to see if that cornfield is still like it's still a thing.
I think that's a good point, because that's something that you don't really see a lot of anymore. It feels like movies don't really go the extra mile to make their worlds feel lived in that too often anymore. Unless there's something you want to talk about first, I think we should also mention the digital effects in this film and the creatures that we see, because they are not the best part. They don't look very good.
Yeah, especially on this rewatch, they don't look very good. But I'm looking up to see.
I won't say they don't look very good. I just say they didn't age the best.
No, they did not age very well. But like for the time in 2006, they were really good. I can't come up. Hold on, I can cut all this stuff out. I'm just looking at my horrible notes. But yeah, shoot. Sorry,
It's okay.
dead air. But yeah, the effects don't really look that good, but I always love practical effects, like when they're used, and the people working on the practical effects, like they actually designed like is it the narfs? They call them narfs in the...
Yes, I believe that's what they're called.
Yeah, they look interesting, and Shyamalan they're from the grass, so it makes sense that they have this grass like exterior. but I don't know. They do look cheesy like now, especially watching it in 4K. So it doesn't hold up there. But I do love the way this film's shot. It's shot by Christopher Doyle, who also shot In the Mood for Love, the Chunking
Oh wow.
Express movie also we
Oh
covered.
wow. Actually, I
And
didn't know that.
yeah, it says that on his letterbox. But yeah,
I always assumed that it would have been Tak Fujimoto because he was working with Shyamalan in his early career a lot for like Signs and The Happening and Unbreakable. But wow, I did not know that. He's worked with a lot of cool DPs over the years.
yeah, I love it when he just got off The Village. He worked with Roger Deakins, and now he's working with Christopher Doyle. And I love it when he's just, even for Trap, he worked with the same DP as Challengers. I'm not gonna butcher their name, but
Dude is
but
amazing.
yeah, incredible DP, and Trap has a very unique kind of look to it for sure.
Yeah, that might be my favorite one visually, but we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, we don't need to talk
Yeah,
about
stay on track.
Yeah, but yeah, I after knowing that too, I can definitely have for especially Chunking Express, I can definitely see that same look, especially. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say. No, you can finish your thought. Sorry.
No, I can see the inspiration like there. Like I can see Shyamalan seeing those films, and hey, I need this guy. So
especially this movie with In the Mood for Love you mentioned, right? Same DP. It's like they both take place in small apartments, and yeah, they both take place in apartment complexes. But that's so interesting because I didn't know that, but that actually makes a lot of sense. There's a warm feeling to, I guess maybe not a warm feeling, is a more of a melancholic feeling to like this movie and to a couple of those movies. But I'm always surprised with the actors that Shyamalan's able to work with. He has such a wide range of talent that he's worked with over the course of his career. But Paul Giamatti is such an interesting choice. I actually didn't even know he was in this film until right before I watched it.
Yeah,
and then also, sorry, go ahead.
No, I knew he was in this movie just because I love Sideways. Sideways was like that film that my mom got me into, and then ever since I saw that movie, I was just like, I'm looking constantly for this guy. This guy is like a tremendous talent. And Shyamalan actually saw Sideways as well, and he was like, I need him to be in Lady in the Water, like the same way like when he saw James McAvoy at a party.
Yeah,
and said he needs to be in Split. So
that's interesting because I've never seen Sideways, so maybe I need to get on that. I do like Alexander Payne. Like you mentioned, the Holdover is very similar. Maybe not curmudgeonly in this movie. I think Paul Giamatti's character in this film is a little nicer, a little more approachable, but there's definitely a fatherly vibe he gives. He's also running the place, so it's he has a little bit of authority to him. Have you ever done the thing where you hold your breath with the characters when they're underwater?
Sometimes, but I do the bridge. Like if they're going over a bridge.
Oh, really?
I do that more like in a movie.
This has a scene where Paul Giamatti goes underwater, and it's like impossible. Like he's under there for quite a bit,
and like the way he gets more air is he finds this glass like underwater. It was like, oh, there's air in here. And uses a. I'm like, okay, that's unbelievable in a way.
It is crazy. I think, and then you have Jeffrey Wright in this movie too, which is like such a shock.
On this rewatch, I was surprised when I saw him. I was like, "That's Jeffrey Wright." I'm like, "Holy shit!" He's playing like, I think probably the best character too. He's the quote unquote the interpreter from this story.
I believe they think he's the interpreter because he does the crossword puzzles, but then it's like the kid or something.
Yeah,
with the cereal boxes.
It's the kid because going back to, I think you mentioned this, Peyton, back to like Unbreakable. Like Shyamalan always goes back to kids. Kids are always like they know the truth. They know the truth of everything, and
they're not burdened by worrying about how they're going to be perceived and what isn't possible. They don't have any notions about that. They're full of faith, I think, is why Shyamalan focuses on them so much.
Yeah, but I love that. And that kid, I looked up his IMDb. He hasn't been in much. since this movie.
Oh, really?
And he's great. He's great in this movie, to be honest.
He's pretty good in this one, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Noah Gray Cabby. I think he's got a movie coming out later this year. Yeah, The Codes of War, whatever that is. But yeah, he was in this movie, and he wasn't in anything for almost 5 years. And then yeah, but
I think that happens to actually a lot of child actors. And then there's also Shyamalan's character who's like, the optics of that are weird. Like, I think he has good intentions, as he always does, with making him that character, but I just think the optics of casting himself in a role where he plays a writer, and like you said, like, is my writing gonna save the world? But also, is somebody gonna kill me because I wrote this? So I think he's grappling with like this whole like fear of if writing what I want to make is gonna just piss people off, what's the point? He has to find that hope and that faith again. So even though I'm gonna get murdered for what I make, but it'll also change the world or something, or it'll inspire a kid who's gonna grow up to be like an important leader, something like that. I think that the optics of that are weird because it's like it almost seems like too egocentric, but I think he's really just speaking for all of us in terms of creativity and expression, and like you shouldn't concern yourself with the results of things, and instead you have to continue making what you believe in. And I think that that's just all this movie is, really just him reaffirming that you should still create what you believe in despite what other people think, and that even if you feel that something has been taken from you because of that, you have to find a way to move forward and continue. And in a way, it's like when you're telling stories and then you get rejected for that, you in a way have to like lean on yourself and your stories even harder. You have to find the faith in your own voice, that you can't look for that in other people. When other people don't deny you that, you have to find it even deeper within yourself. I think that's essentially what he's getting at with this.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said before, it's like he's focused on purpose. Like everyone's purpose, like it's not necessarily that he thinks everyone can be creative, but everyone in the back of their mind can be creative. It's all up to them to unleash it. If they don't want to unleash it, they don't have to. But if they do, it's going to affect someone like right next to them, affect them across the world. And I just love that sentiment for sure. I just realized I forgot to do box office numbers, but we can do that before we get into the breakdown. Its budget, Lady in the Water had a budget of $70 million. It grossed a domestic gross of $42 million, and then a worldwide gross of $72 million. So it bombed in a way.
Wait, what was the budget?
$70 million, and it just barely made back.
Ooh.
Yeah, and this was the first film where Shyamalan, whether you like this organization or not, I do not like them because I think they're very mean-spirited, but Shyamalan won a Razzie for Worst Director and Worst Supporting Actor, and
Worst
just
supporting
don't
actor for who? Bryce Dallas Howard?
No, for Shyamalan.
Oh,
I think
at that point, you just hate the person. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's not actually a bad performance. Come on now. He's actually really good in his movies, like most of the time.
Yeah, he's really good in this. So despite like you mentioned, like the whole optics of the situation and whether it's egotistical or not. Like I said, I think on rewatch, I don't think it's as egotistical as we thought. Like back in the day, it's still not great, but he's still really good in it. And but shall we get into this movie? 30 minutes into this recording, there's not much to it, but I think there's some good things to get from it. But we start with an animated sequence. I think this is did Unbreakable have an animated sequence, or did it have just? So this might be the first one where it's like telling the story through animated sequences of the Narnia.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ever done that besides this.
He did it in Trap, but that's a whole other podcast. But
are you talking about the opening credits?
Yeah, the opening credits for.
His opening credits always have something to. There's always like a little the butcher lines in Trap. Or my favorite one is Old, when the letters are like transforming really fast. If that's what you mean. Mm-hmm. He always has some kind of animated thing there, but in terms of actually, storytelling through animation, like you have these, I don't know, these women and like the little spiral symbol. I don't quite remember it perfectly, but Yeah, this is really cool. I think this scene hooks me immediately.
Yeah, it definitely hooks you, and it definitely gets you like into the bedtime story. I can definitely picture these animations like in my head if M. Night
Yeah.
Shyamalan was telling me this.
Yes.
And also, that's just like a dream of mine. If Shyamalan ever wants to like come to my house and just read me a bedtime story,
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
I don't know how much money I would pay. I don't know if that's a cameo, if he's on Cameo.
I think I'd give him the house.
You would just give him your house.
Yeah, to do that. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but really great sequence. It goes into like the whole Narfs. The Narfs are what story is, and the Scrunts are the wolf-like creatures that live in the grass.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got that wrong.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, gives the backstory in that, and that the Narfs are there. They've been isolated and oppressed in a way, like being hunted by the Scrunts. And then after this animated sequence, we get introduced to Cleveland Heap, Paul Giamatti. I don't know about that name, Cleveland Heap. Silly.
It is such a goofy name, honestly. Cleveland Heap is crazy, but I do love the introductory sequence to him when he's trying to catch, what is it, a mouse or a bug or something in this apartment. That scene is hilarious. The way that it's shot is so funny.
Yeah, the family in the background, and they're like all nervous, and Paul Giamatti is like on a mission. Like Cleveland Heap's on a mission. He's gonna. It's a mouse. Is it a mouse? I thought it was like a spider. All this.
It might be. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
I don't think we ever find out what it was. Some beast. It could be a Scrunt.
I mean, and here's the thing. I think Shyamalan, he always gets his themes out in like the first scene or sets them up. And I think this movie is no different. Like, this movie is basically about fairy tales and believing in fairy tales. It's a grounded version of a fairy tale where the opening scene, we see Cleveland Heap, who's essentially our hero of the story, slaying a beast for these people. And I think that is like such a cool way to open it, because I think he finds extraordinary in the ordinary, and an apartment maintenance guy, manager guy, isn't really like something you consider to be extraordinary, but then you see it's, oh no, he's just like the heroes of old. Like, he protects people and he keeps them safe. And it's this kind of point of view that Shyamalan has that it always surprises me, but I always am like, yeah, why can't we view other people with such reverence like that, even if they're doing something so simple? The world is a magical place. And
I really love how Cleveland Heap is introducing like the audience to all these other characters around him.
Absolutely.
I think it's the film critic, right? Shows him to his room.
He talks to him very early on, and then the film critics, I saw this movie Trap. It was really bad. Little foreshadowing there. No, that doesn't happen. But
did he mention? I don't think he mentions like what movie he saw. He was just like,
no, I think he just says it sucks or whatever. And then
always The Village.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's I think who this is. Because I think what this guy is, and it can come off a little funny, but there's a scene later where this character meets his fate, and he describes what's happening to him in this very deadpan like way of, oh, this is the part of the story where this happens. I think that Shyamalan is just being critical of the way that this character thinks he knows what's supposed to happen, what everything's supposed to look like. And I think that's something that Shyamalan is always trying to disrupt, is like what you think a movie is supposed to look like and supposed to feel like. And I think that character
or supposed to happen
for that. Yeah,
that's a great scene. That's a great scene because Shyamalan, he doesn't go full horror like in his movies like all the time, but that sequence he went full horror, and it almost mean-spirited in a way where he's just like
a little bit.
No other character dies in this entire movie.
He just hates that guy, bro. He just hates that guy.
Wouldn't you? He's
a
jerk. So
he's this movie is just about how Shyamalan critics should die. They should just die.
Yes.
If you don't like
or not
movies,
just die,
you should die.
He wants them to get real, just because, like you said, like during that scene, like when he dies, he like describes what's going to happen and how everything is so predictable. But Shyamalan is basically saying here, where's the I'm the captain now.
Yeah.
He has like his
No.
I'm the captain moment.
I
and he's
don't
like,
literally
I'm in
think he
charge.
wants them to die. I just think it's just so funny. But like
Yeah.
that, in a way, that's how people see this movie. Is they're like, oh, so what? Your critics are awful. Your writing is like super great, and you're gonna save the world. And this is the movie you made to show me that. That's, I think, most people's. Even if you know the context, I think that's most people's perception of it, because they aren't. I guess they aren't really being too nice or sensitive to it.
Yeah.
But
and
I think
they're
it's
also not giving him a fair shot too.
yeah, I think it's a courageous movie. Like, it really
Mhm.
is a courageous movie. And you have one of the messages in the movie is just believing in a fairy tale or a story is like what helps us believe that there's more to life than just the awfulness around us. That's literally said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's
But
just.
yeah,
I think he just thinks that everyone, to a degree, should buy into this stuff.
exactly. Because if you buy into it, you have a good time, and you
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and you're buying into what Shyamalan has thrown down. But
Yeah.
like I said, I really like the whole Paul Giamatti's character walking through the apartment, and like the guy that working out one side of his body, played by shoot, I had his name pulled up, Freddie Rodriguez. I don't think I've seen him in any. He's in Planet Terror. He's in Planet Terror and Grindhouse, Poseidon, kind of playing like the same character, but I just like the way he like weaves through this apartment complex and all these different types of people. Like the old woman with the butterfly, they'll
Yeah.
be revealed as the healer. I love that character specifically because it's Shyamalan saying that like when things are tough, we always go back to elders to heal us, and because they're wise, and it's just like when movies are nice to like elderly people. So it's like that touching character there. And we also get introduced to the Asian family. Cindy Chung's character. She's the one that's telling this entire story, which I
Yeah.
also think is very. I think it's very like on point too. It's Shyamalan commenting on most of these stories are from Asian descent, and they start from the elderly from these cultures, and they pass them down to us.
Yeah.
And I think that's really telling and powerful for sure. So
Yeah, and like we need them, like he's showing us.
yeah, and also I think you mentioned this earlier. You liked kind of Paul Giamatti's like childlike wonder, like in this film.
Yes.
I specifically love that moment where when Cindy Chung's mom, like in the movie, is she told him half of the story, and then Paul Giamatti gets really interested after discovering the story in the pool, and he goes back to her mom and sits on the couch, and he like I feel like Paul Giamatti. No one else could be cast in this movie but Paul Giamatti. Like when he like is eating cookies and milk and like lays down on the couch in like a childlike pose and just smiles. It's such a like a heartwarming smile and very silly smile too, but that's what a child would do. It's like, please tell more of the story, mommy. I want the second half of this story, but yeah.
Yeah, he has to be in touch with his inner child in order to truly understand the story, and I think that's very telling for a lot of these movies.
Yeah, but yeah, I skipped over a little bit like of Cleveland, like discovering like the girl in the pool.
That's a great scene.
It's a really great scene because it's very like horror adjacent. Where, especially on rewatch, it reminded me of Night Swim a lot. Don't watch that movie. I'm not sure.
Watch this one.
Yeah, watch this one instead. But I like of story. You get like foreshadowing of her getting like the watch off of the chair, like from the pool, and she's pulling it down back to her world. And you find later, like when Paul Giamatti is like swimming with unlimited air, as you mentioned, all the stuff that she's collected over. But what do you think of the scene where when Paul Giamatti first sees her like in the pool and sees her splashing around?
Like you said, it's horror adjacent. I think it's really well shot scene. It draws you into the movie even more. Also, a friend of mine who hasn't seen this film, she said that it reminded her when she saw the trailer of Aquamarine, the movie with the mermaid. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I've heard of it, and you know what? I
Yeah,
remember when I first watched this movie and I put it on. They're like, and I don't think anyone mentioned it specifically, but there, I think someone sent me like a link or something like that. Oh,
yeah.
Aquamarine, you meant this movie's.
It's definitely like that. If you compare, they're very similar. But yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great scene, and then Story just busts into Cleveland's apartment and he just finds her just like on his couch, and Cleveland's kind of just in shock a little bit that there's like this girl like just sitting, and then that's when he's starts finding out more about the story of these narfs, and that's where the kind of like the story starts opening up, and you start learning about like the blue world, and yeah. But then when Cleveland tries to bring back like Story, we get an attack from the Scrunts, and then that's when Story gets injured, and yeah, that kind of like sets off like this entire thing where Paul Giamatti is the guardian and is trying to protect like Story from this evil, but and
Yeah,
yeah, and seeks like help from the residents within this community to help out Story, but also help out themselves. And that, like you said, it's like that's like the whole theme of this movie. It's people helping people, but when they help other people, they also help themselves
or when
and
they
understand.
help stories, basically. Like
Mhm.
when what I like is that it's all within the community. It's all within this
Mhm.
one apartment community. It's how do you know that everyone that you need is within this community? And it's because if you take like any community of people, anyone you get together, like you can find everything you need. You can find like the world in that. And I think that's
Mhm.
another thing that Shyamalan's getting at. It's definitely a movie about like working together in unity and all that, and
Mhm.
community for sure. I think
And
it's
like
more of an ensemble than most of his films.
the village is an ensemble. And like I
That's
said,
true.
the village is based on community as well, but like I said, it's the negative parts. This is what
Yeah.
happens when you close yourself off from everything else. That
Yes.
community can shut down. But here it's like they're using community and learning from each other and finding out how they can make each other better. And
They're all
like I
collectively learning to believe in something greater, I think.
yeah, like I think the like the people that I like the most are like the group of stoners that are staying in like the apartment, and Paul Giamatti's character instantly writes them off, like knowing anything about this.
Mhm.
But there's like that one scene where like they say something profound, and like Paul Giamatti's like ears lift up, where it's just it like it's totally a stoner situation. If you've
Yeah.
ever been in that situation where it's like someone says something smart in like the group, I'm like, oh, I'm like these people are actually more than what they say they are. But I love that moment for Paul Giamatti where he was writing them off, and they was like, no, what, these people are important. Like all these people are important, and
Everybody knows something that you don't.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, that so obviously everyone comes together to save Story, and there it's am I forgetting anything like in here?
I'm
It's
trying
pretty.
to recall the exact order of events. I think so. You mentioned how Paul Giamatti is the Guardian, but he's
Mhm.
actually not the Guardian, as we come to find out. And I think that is probably the most moving scene in the whole film is when they don't know who the Guardian is until they're in the moment. But before that, he thinks he's the Guardian, and then he's holding Story, and he has this like beautiful monologue
Oh,
about
it's
his children, because we come to find out throughout the movie that his children have been basically, I think it's his wife and his children that were killed
yeah,
by, I think,
and
home invasion, and he
it's by home
carries
invasion.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, he carries that with him, and I think it's one of those things where it's like that kind of stuff will have you rejecting hope and storytelling and belief and all that stuff, but it's actually when you need it the most.
Mhm.
And yeah, so he just has this beautiful monologue, and then it heals Story.
Yeah, like he
That's
heals
true, right?
Story. No,
That is what
no,
happened.
he heals Story in that moment, and I remember that embrace like specifically because this is the moment when I started crying. is when I think maybe I'm jumping a little too far ahead, but like when he embraces story and says, "Thank you for saving me."
Yeah.
Like that's the moment where I ugly cry in a lot of movies. I'm not afraid to like share that, but like this moment like really made me ugly cry, especially like knowing Shyamalan's kind of like just his relationship with his daughters, especially with his later movies. Like that moment, I definitely saw a lot of Shyamalan's daughters like in story, and Paul Giamatti is Shyamalan here, and like he's scared for his daughters to go out into the world, especially at this time, because they must have been, I would say, about 12, 13, like here, maybe like early teenage years or something like that. They're just starting to explore the world, and like the
Yeah,
world's
there
a danger.
would be Salika would be 9, and she's his oldest.
Oh yeah, so 9 or 10, eight
I
or
know
9.
that because in Signs, Salika was 5 when that was made because her drawings are used in Signs.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
Abigail
right.
Breslin's character is the same age as her. That's on
Mhm.
purpose. But in this movie, it basically is about how your children, your stories, and your community are what saves you, or what keeps you going. And the story says is man thinks that he's alone, but we're actually like all connected. And that's something that I thought of recently. I was just out in public, like at a sandwich shop, and I was just looking at the line of people, and I just had this moment where I was like all these people have, I didn't know, this is so silly sounding, this is such a stoner thought, but like all these people have their own
No, that's fine.
lives going on. And I thought of that line. I was like, it's crazy how similar how much I probably have in common with all these people that I don't even know about, but we're so focused on what we disagree on. But yeah, it's stories, family, and community. That's the recipe for Shyamalan.
Yeah, yeah, family and community, and this is why I always say that Shyamalan should direct a Fast and Furious movie. But that's another podcast. But as you mentioned, Cleveland is not like the Guardian. The actual Guardian is Reggie, the man with very interesting twist. Like when that happened, and he started like looking into the Skrunt's eyes and holding the Skrunt kind of like steady. Like it's I will admit I'm a little confused how that actually works. Are you supposed to like you're supposed to look in the Skrunt's
If you
eyes
look
and
at it,
they don't
it's
move?
scared of you.
It's
I
kind of
guess
like a bear.
it's scared of the
Like when
Guardian, but the Guardian is. I don't think the twist of him being the Guardian is really that significant. I think it's more about what Cleveland is versus what he isn't. I think having him be the Guardian, I guess it makes sense because he's just really strong in one side of his body.
yeah. And
But
plus, he wasn't really anything at that point, so they're like, "Oh, we got to give him something." Here.
also, there's the whole thing about anybody could be important. I have no idea.
Yeah, you never know where that importance could strike, but
Yeah.
yeah, and then like I mentioned, like the final confrontation with the Guardian, Reggie, he confronts the Skrunt and basically scares the Skrunt away, and they drag it away. But is this where you're like talking about like the eagle shot, where it's a little bit? I think that's a little on the nose, and also it doesn't look so great.
What do you mean by on the nose?
Like it just seems, oh, they're soaring off to something new or something like that.
I think it's honestly, I think it's fine. The story gets rescued, goes back to her home, and I think that the eagle, it makes sense. It's like Lord of the Rings when you think about it.
Yeah. We just compared Lord of the Rings to Lady in the
I
Water.
think it's baked into the whole fantasy fairy tale element of it, so I think it works.
Yeah, I think I was just, especially on this rewatch, it just those visual effects don't look that great.
Yeah, that's just something that comes with time. It's almost 20 years old. It'll be 20 years old next year, this movie.
Oh, don't remind me. I hate it when those 20-year anniversaries show up. But yeah, it's frustrating. But yeah, that's Lady in the Water. A very weird movie. Is there anything else you want to mention or bring up that's also weird about this movie or whatever that we missed?
I love that Shyamalan's book in it is called The Cookbook. I'm a fan of that choice. That's what I'll say.
I'm confused by it in a way. Like it's like obviously I think his character Vic Rand, that's his character's name. I think he's being coy like that in a way.
I think it's hilarious. Yeah.
Because that's actually a funny sequence, like when he's fixing when Cleveland's fixing his lamp, and he like the way Paul Giamatti like acts like in that scene where he's just like, oh, he like like he like pretends to drop something over there. Oh my god, I accidentally opened your journal, your script, and I got to see what you're writing, and I'm like,
that's so funny.
And also the way it doesn't it say do not read?
I don't remember. Maybe it does.
I think it does. And I'm just like, who does that? I don't think
he doesn't want to know the twist to the cookbook.
Oh yeah, it's Shyamalan. Shyamalan's cooking. It's all of his ideas where he's cooking, but
yeah,
like he does in every movie.
Basically,
but,
yeah, when he screenwrites, he does cook.
Yeah. See, so now you're coming around on Lady in the Water. It's
yeah,
like, he's not egotistical anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't really have anything else. Like you said, this is a weird movie. It's hard to break down in a way, but I think it's also like when you actually start to realize like what this movie is about and like its true meaning. I think this movie is very powerful, and I think everyone should see this movie because Shyamalan just wants the best in all of us, and even the people that he doesn't necessarily like or thinks are evil, he sees the best in them, and he hopes that they can find like that best part of them and show it to the world. And I think that's the thing that I get emotional about. That Shyamalan could be at the top of the highest point in his career, but he will always say creatives will always have that ability to create, and he will always see the best in people. And we need more people like Shyamalan in this world, especially now.
Yeah.
More than ever. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you pretty much summed it up. I think, yeah, this is a bizarre film, but I love it. I think it's brave and courageous, and I think that it's very vulnerable and extremely sincere. And so I think it'll either make you a Shyamalan super fan or it'll lead you to question whether you really like his stuff. But either way, I'm glad that it exists.
Yeah, I'm glad that it exists too. I'm glad I have it in my collection again, and I won't name the person that stole that Blu-ray, but I scold you forever for stealing that because I know they did it out of spite.
You have it on Blu-ray?
But yeah,
it's
I had it on Blu-ray. I had it on Blu-ray, but now I have it on DVD.
So yeah, no, I would have stolen that too.
It's hard to find his movies on Blu-ray now. Like The Village,
just a few of them. It's just The Happening, The Village, and this one that I find super hard to locate on Blu-ray.
Yeah, that 4K copy of The Village is still
that needs to come
in
out.
purgatory. I I said this on the Village podcast. I think that the Criterion is working on that. Would be amazing. That would be his first Criterion.
I would be so happy.
He deserves it. M. Night Shyamalan deserves it. But yeah.
Yes.
Any more final thoughts, Peyton, on Lady in the Water?
No, I think we pretty much summed it up.
Yeah, I think we summed it up too. But this is the part of the show, Peyton, where you get to tell people where they can find you online.
Yeah, you can find me on TikTok at Peyton_pictures. You can find me on Letterboxd, Instagram, and Blue Sky at PeytonJB. And that's where to find me. I've been posting a lot on TikTok lately. That's my main place.
Yeah, all the links will be in the description. Definitely give Peyton a follow. He's a great follow, and I've really been loving your content lately on TikTok. Even though hopefully it won't get banned again.
Yeah,
that's why I've been staying away from TikTok, but I still post like whenever I feel like it. Maybe I'll post a video on Lady in the Water when this episode comes out. But yeah. If people don't find me annoying by the end of this episode, you can follow me pretty much everywhere on social media. Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky are the main ones with the username at Marley Loves Film. That's across all social media. Just give me a follow there. You can listen to this podcast anywhere you listen to Pocket Casts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and then also give us check out our digital crib, thereallovers.com, where I'm also writing articles about M. Night Shyamalan and Lady in the Water and just other movies in general, thereallovers.com. But yeah, the next movie that we're going to be covering on this M. Night Shyamalan retrospective is the 2008 film The Happening. But yeah, Peyton, do you love The Happening? I know you do.
Great
I'm
film.
not sure why I'm asking.
Great film.
Yeah. Another weird film, much like This is like the weird era of M. Night. Like, I mentioned, like, it was like the start of the Warner Brothers era, but this is very much the weird era. And there's a film that after The Happening that's also weird as well.
Oh, yeah.
I will reveal that
Hey,
at the end of
I'm there if you need me. I'm there if you need me.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I always know when to call on you, Peyton.
Yeah,
But yeah.
you can call me if you don't have someone.
But yeah, Peyton, thank you again for joining me for this conversation. But yeah, anyways, with that being said, my name is Marley Silverbrand for the Real Lovers Podcast.
And I'm Peyton.
And let's get back to the movies. See ya.